We will have an invocation beginning with Council Member Wright and a pledge by Council Member Smith.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day and grateful for the many blessings that gives us. Grateful to live in this beautiful country, beautiful state, and beautiful city. We are grateful for the privileges we have to serve and to do those things that are best for Springville. We're grateful for the opportunities that we have to watch out for our citizens and do those things that are best for Springville. And we ask that will guide us with thy spirit and bless us that we'll be able to make those decisions that are good. And we ask for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Will the audience please rise?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Okay, I need an approval on the meeting agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting's agenda as written.
Okay, a second.
I will second that.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, we'd like to welcome anybody who's here, students or whatever. I don't know, we got a young person right there in the front row. Hi, how are you? You're welcome to come up and sit with us if you'd like. No way, Jose. But I have a drawer full of candy if you ever want to come up here. So that may bait you up here. So we have a number of public comments. We're very grateful for them. So if you have an interest in sharing some thoughts and doing a public comment, the forms are out in the foyer, and just get the form to Kim and she'll get them to me. So, but there'll be an opportunity to be able to do that. Let's go to that point in the program. So if that would be okay, let's do our public comments. So first of all, we've got, looks like we have 4 or 5 of them. Sarah Renloff, is that right? Did I say that right? There we go. Come right up here and take 2 or 3 minutes. And what we ask all of you to do is just state your name and your address, so we just have it for the record. And then we'll give you a chance, give you 2 or 3 minutes to talk to us. And we can't make any decisions on what you're presenting, but whatever it is that's of concern to you, just let us know, and we'll listen to what you have to say. So,
Okay, great.
all right.
My name's Sarah Rosenloff, and I live at 39 C Street. So this map is helpful in addressing my concern today, which is this crosswalk here on Brookside and B Street, at the intersection of B Street. So right now, this street, Brookside, just has a lot of traffic. It's pretty much a throughway to the high school, and which isn't as much of a concern right now, obviously, since school isn't in. But year-round, we, as parents in this neighborhood, are concerned about how fast people drive and the fact that this crosswalk does not have really much. I think there's like a little sign, but there's nothing really that stops people from just blasting past it, even if you're standing there with your kids waiting to cross. So I have some fellow neighbors here who have come up with some more detailed suggestions for what we can do there, but really anything to help just draw attention to that crosswalk to kind of force people to slow down.
You're talking the east-west at 185?
Yes.
Right there?
Yes. Yep, right there. So it connects to the church right there. It connects to that park. It's used all the time. And there are so many kids in this neighborhood, young kids, and like the people living on the street, like their kids can't even play in the front yard because people just zoom by. In the middle of the night, like people are going probably like 50 miles an hour on that road. And even in the day, whenever I turn into our neighborhood, I will be going the speed limit, 25 miles per hour, and there's always somebody right on my tail, just waiting for me to turn onto my street so they can keep zooming past. So anyway, that is my concern. And just hope that something can be put in place, whether it's flashing lights or I think Carrie has a better description of like the concrete things that kind of stick out a little bit to yeah.
Bulbouts.
Sure. Yeah.
Bulbouts.
Yes.
Yeah.
That. So anyway.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does the council know where we're talking?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me ask you this, is the problem just with that section of the drive or anywhere else in Brookside? Is it that section that's the thoroughfare to the high school?
Yeah.
So that's the one we're talking about specifically?
Yes,
Is there a problem somewhere else, or is it just that throughway?
The main problem I am aware of is just this throughway.
Okay.
So the west side of the drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
you.
Megan Hartman? I probably didn't do these in the order you wanted. I'm sorry about that.
So yeah, my name is Megan Hartman. I just wrote my stuff down.
And your address?
Yeah, so 162. So I live right next to the crosswalk.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna read what I've written. It's mostly just saying what I've observed. So our neighborhood is high density, where a great number of young families live with their young children. I live right next to the crosswalk that leads to Brookside Elementary, Colab Park, and our local LDS church building. In my 4 years of living on Brookside Drive, this is what I've observed. Drivers do not pay attention to the speed limit, let alone the crosswalk. They speed all the hours of the day, all throughout the year, and when my husband and I are out front, we have to motion for several people to slow down. Our roads are narrow, and many people park on the street, so there's little visibility, both for the pedestrians and the drivers. I have witnessed 2 car collisions right in front of my house, and our next door neighbor's parked car has been hit by passing cars twice, in addition to those collisions. There's no easement from the sidewalk to the road, so even if kids aren't crossing, they're walking against a road where people are driving well over the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit on a regular basis. Just the bottom line is people on a road are not paying attention to their speed, let alone the crosswalk. I have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 18-month-old, and I never feel like my kids are safe in their own front yard. And it's not just my kids that I'm worried about. I'm worried about all the kids who use the crosswalk to get to and from school, the park, and the church. We are all here as a neighborhood today because we just really want a solution that helps it be a safer environment in general for children, especially because children are prevalent in that area, and especially young children. Even if a parent's out, you never know when they're gonna just run out in front of you. And so it's always a fear. Some things that have been suggested is possibly a raised crosswalk, something that encourages people to slow down, but also they're aware that it's a crosswalk and they know that there's a possibility that someone might be crossing, or just even at the very least a radar sign that lets people know how fast they're going, so they're encouraged to slow down. There's a lot of ideas here, but overall this has been an issue, in my understanding, for a long time that they've tried to bring to light, and it just hasn't been addressed yet. So we're just hoping that this gets taken care of before anything happens that we would, obviously not want to happen. So that's all. Thank you.
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. Okay, Lindsay Moss, is that right?
Lindsay Moss, 500 Brookside Drive. My primary concern, like others in this room, is that crosswalk over there, but more so the crosswalk on 400 South for the kids to get to school.
You're talking about the one that's
400
across
South, right
4
in front
South?
of Brookside. Right in front of Brookside School, 400 South.
Okay.
So,
That's like you're gonna go to Reams.
yes.
Yeah, it goes to the Reams
This
parking
one
lot.
right here.
Okay, very good.
So I called the school because the crossing guard is constantly, I don't know if there's gonna be a new crossing guard, but she was constantly late, 15 minutes every single day, very consistently. So I called the school, they told me to call the district, called the district. They told me to call the police department. Officer Greg Ellsworth is over the crossing guards, but I don't think that that crosswalk is a good solution. We've got a light right there, and that should be where the kids are crossing. I've watched kids almost get hit by a van before, just on my way to drop off my kids to Brookside. So I know there's resurfacing going on around all of those roads right now. If we could just paint over those dash lines and add them to Brookside on this crosswalk right here, and then not do the dashed lines again.
So you're talking about doing away with 4 South,
yeah,
that one right there.
doing away with those lines right there, moving the crosswalk for the kids officially to right here at the intersection where the light is, because kids will come there and they will cross there regardless if there is a crossing guard or not. I've watched it so many times. So if we could just move it right here and then put the dashed lines right here, there's resurfacing going on, like it would be a really easy fix. And it would be a lot safer for all the kids.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mariah McDonald?
Hi, I'm Mariah McDonald. I live at 99 B Street, and my oldest daughter walks to school every day. Last year she was in 1st grade, and so she was 6 years old, and crossing there every day made me pretty nervous because they would take the path behind the school, because that's the safest way to get to school for them. And so things that I noticed and have noticed living in the neighborhood, and times where I would sometimes go pick her up, or when she was in kindergarten, we would be returning home around high school lunchtime, and it would just be constant, very fast traffic, and then we'd have to basically like flag someone down, and I'm a full-size person trying to flag people down. I just can't imagine them always seeing my little 5 or 6 year old. And the thing is, like, that it's not always the high school traffic. I've seen lots of people who are obviously not in high school just blowing through the neighborhood very quickly, and I just don't think that the signage is very visible for this crosswalk. It's not like the most obvious one. So I think some sort of like flashing sign, or perhaps the flags that you can remove at the side of the road are actually really an easy one for the kids. They just carry it across, they wave it in the air just to make sure they don't get hit. Because I've trained my daughter really well. She's grown up most of her life in this neighborhood, and so she checks very diligently. She never goes if she can see any car at either direction, because she knows how fast they can go. But still, there's other kids in the neighborhood that aren't as careful, and the foot traffic there's dozens of kids crossing there every day for school. And I think that any solution to help just make it more visible would be really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Travis Farnsworth?
My name is Travis Farnsworth. I live at 56 C Street. I, too, am here to talk about the crosswalk on Brookside, coming off of B Street between 185 and 190. It's concerning because it's so fast through that area. And I know we keep talking about how our road is used as a thoroughfare toward the high school. It should not be. This is a neighborhood, not a main drive road. The road just south of us, 8th South, it has bike lanes. It's wide enough for parking on both sides. It's got lighting. My neighborhood, for the past week, hasn't been lit there at that crosswalk post 11 o'clock. I don't even think the light has come on. You'd have to talk to one of my neighbors. I just know when I go to walk my dog at the park, it's been off, and it's dark. It's 23 steps across for me as a grown man. So for a child, you're probably talking somewhere closer to 40, at least, would be my guess. It takes 8 steps to get in from the curb, which who knows where it ends because we have those rounded curbs. At least 8 steps to get into the road. It takes 14 steps to get to the yellow lines in the middle of the street for a grown adult again. The things that we should be doing are more than just flashing signs, because flashing signs do work. There was a study done by the feds, and they said that adding clear signage decreases crashes by up to 25%, which is great. Lighting, however, also decreases crashes by up to 42%. We have high visibility markings, which will decrease crashes by up to 48%. But then we can also, in addition to pedestrian safety items, we should be worried about traffic calming items. We should be slowing traffic there and directing traffic to take other preferred main roads, such as 4th South up to the roundabout and around to the high school, or 8th South up to the high school. Things like a raised crossing, because cars have been getting bigger for the past 10 years, right? We've seen the size of cars increase from 2000 to 2018 by a height of 11%, increasing blind spots for up to like 35 feet, something like that, for large trucks, which do speed through there quite often. By having a raised sidewalk with hatching, making it state law that all cars must stop when a pedestrian is anywhere in that. We will not only raise children to make them more visible, we will make it so everyone has to stop with clear signage saying that it should stop. All of these things should be measures that we should be taking into account and thinking about. And because, as discussed, this is a major thoroughfare for people going from a neighborhood to a park, to a school, to a church, from these places through a neighborhood toward the other school, the high school, which we also get a lot of walkers. And I know that because I live on C Street, which is on the way to the other crosswalk, which is problematic, but we'll also not talk about that today. Anyway, I thank you for your time. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. Carrie Huffman? You related to the guy next to you?
What?
Were you related to the guy next to you?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I am. I know him well. I'm Carrie Huffman. I live at 154 C Street. And I have the same concern about the same crosswalk. I kind of wrote down some of my thoughts. I'm super nervous, so I'm going to read some of them.
Don't be nervous.
I'm sure trying not to be, but I just, again, want to emphasize that this crosswalk is so well used by so many children, adults, dogs, families. It's being so walked during the school year, outside of the school year. We're using it almost every day in the summer. We use it to get to Reams. We use it to get to the park, to get to the church. And I try to teach my children, like Mariah was talking about, that we need to look for cars. We try to teach them to be safe. We do all we can do, but we can't protect them from the distracted, speeding drivers. There's only so much we can do for that. The current signs, I know they got put in a few years ago, but I just don't think they're enough. I think it's not going to stop someone that's distracted, that's speeding for looking for children, for looking for anyone that may be crossing. And let's see. I know that a couple years ago, Lily Warren was hit by a car and killed. I'm so sorry. I don't even know her, but I put myself in the position of her parents when I talk about this. But she was using a crosswalk up on Canyon Road, and she died because she was hit by the car. I don't think that we should be waiting for disaster to strike before we enforce safer streets. That's why I'm here. I want to be proactive. I want to make a safer crosswalk and safer roads for my neighborhood and for my family. I think the solution, there's been a lot of ideas I think a great solution would be to have, you called it a bulb.
Bulb out.
Hunter calls it a neck. I don't know. Something, some kind of concrete structure to narrow the street, to force people to slow down. And have to look, have to see children. But I think that would be effective. Something, we just got to do something. We've got to slow down the traffic. I think traffic is increasing, and so are the children in Brookside. I know of 5 people that are pregnant right now, and one of them has twins. And I don't think we can stop the children from coming, but I do think there's stuff we can do to slow down the traffic. And that is all I have to say.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming. Hunter?
Hunter Huffman, 154 C Street. I do want to clarify this was not my idea.
You should own
Although they did want to know about the process, and so this is what I believe is appropriate and a process that I think you guys
Very
would appreciate and is very
appropriate.
valued.
Yep.
Similar to all my neighbors and friends, I do have concerns there as well. I have 4 kids under the age of 7, and at one point, all 4 of those kids are going to be in Brookside going to school. So it's a concern. Like my wife mentioned, I mean, there's a number of solutions. The asphalt width in Brookside is 30 feet wide in most areas. I mean, it kind of varies. It's actually wider at this condition because of the radius of the turn. So if we look at an average travel lane, it's 10 feet. A freeway lane's 12. But at 10 feet wide as a travel lane, that gives us at least 5 feet on each side to work with to better design this intersection and work within the parameters we have. I know it's a common topic of people saying, oh, well, it's dangerous because there's cars parked on the street in Brookside, and so you don't know who's going to dart out. I actually prefer that my neighbors are parking on the street because it slows people down. I want the visible width of that asphalt to be as narrow as possible for the driver driving that street. The crosswalk signs and the speed limit signs are not going to control how fast people go. The street design is going to dictate that. There's a couple conditions here in Springville that we've done. My wife mentioned the one up on Canyon Road. There's even the neck down or the bulb that they did over at Meadowbrook Elementary from the crossing of the new park to Meadowbrook. That's an exact condition that I would highly suggest. There's a lot of different ways that I think we can look at it. I think it's just something that we wanted to bring up as a community. And I know many of you and would appreciate any valued input or concern or shared concern there as we as community members share this with you guys. Thanks, Council.
Thank you, Hunter. Appreciate that. Judith? Newbie? Last the best.
Judith Newby, 246 Brookside Drive. I went out and I measured the crosswalk, and from this northern one is 50 feet long, and the one just out south of it is 44 feet long, and the one right in front to get across the street right in front of my house is 33 feet. So that's an extension of about 11 foot on the shorter side of it. So there's plenty of room to work with, and it's mostly this curve right here, which adds the excessive distance. So even if they're coming out here, coming out past the cars to look or staying back to look, they still have an extra, they're in the crosswalk a lot longer. Whoever's crossing is in the crosswalk a lot longer than normal. It's about half of a road distance more. And there's already a no parking zone right here in front of the crosswalk where the Y is. This is all red and no parking. So there's plenty of room to work there if we need to. And then just this curve, there's lots of space where the curve is. And so I was always wondering why I was more comfortable with my kids crossing here where I live than going down and crossing at the crosswalk. And now I know it's because of the extended distance where it is a lot easier to go by. And I know, just driving in, personal experience, I know the signs are there. I even know there's a crosswalk there. But just, I always have to catch myself. Oh, gotta slow down and double check everything. And I drive that multiple times a week. So it's someone who's not driving there, constantly living there, is not going to be as cognizant about the need to be aware. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Please.
My name's Mike Snelson, and I grew up at 128 C Street. About the same age as what all your kids are growing up and going through there. There wasn't near the traffic there that there is now. But I cycled through a neighborhood very similar to part of Brookside anyway, especially this part. Over in Spanish Fork, there's a route on my morning route that I cycle through that does have bulb outs in a very similar place where there's a lot of kids, and it's very effective. I just wanted to make that comment, and I think the ideas that have been expressed here tonight are very well placed.
Can I make a comment as well?
Please.
I'm Logan Millsap. I grew up at number 12 C Street there. And these comments about the fright of letting kids cross at crosswalks are pretty common throughout the whole city. There's a lot of crosswalks in places where neighbors are worried about their kids getting across busy roads. And I think that kind of signifies that there's an appetite throughout the city for a lot more traffic calming. Things like bulb outs or raised crosswalks or RRFB, the flashing beacons. There's a lot of things that we can do to make our crosswalk safer. And so I would love to have a discussion with the rest of the council at some point about kind of a more comprehensive approach to traffic calming throughout the city, especially because we're going to be making a lot more connections of roads. Like this road, Brookside Drive, 8th East, there's that roundabout that's going in down there on 8th South that will make it even more of a through road. And so as we're connecting this grid, I hope we kind of look at also calming the traffic that we're going to allow to flow more freely.
I have one more comment.
Go ahead.
My friends and I found a very effective way to calm traffic, and I'm not suggesting that we do this.
This
but
is
it was
on record, by the way.
I know. I know. And it only works in the winter. You throw snowballs at cars.
Chief?
One of my very good friends lived at 185. That was a perfect place. And we got chased a lot.
Well, sure.
So one of the other neighbors expresses these same concerns, and they've tried to like take their own measures, like snowballs and other things, like even just the little like yellow child at play thing, and they were actually told by the city to take those down. And other times that they've tried to address this, they were told that it was a school district issue. I haven't been familiar with what is going on in Springville City. I know that the city owns that street, and they own the sidewalk. So I know that they've tried to go the school district route. We're not asking for a crossing guard. I don't think that's the right approach. But there have been solutions tried to have been had for years and years, and it has fallen on deaf ears in the past. So just adding that.
Well, you need to know that this is the process, and we're very grateful that you come here. It doesn't fall on deaf ears. I've done this for 3 years on this stunt, or 5 years, I guess it is. And these comments are taken very seriously by the council, so we're very grateful for you to come. So what we're going to do is this, if it's okay with you, is we've got Brad Stapley here, and he's got engineers. And you may want to have a point person to work with Brad or work with his engineers to kind of talk through this issue. This is, in a nice sort of way, this is really operational, and that's where staff comes in and gets involved with the operation of doing things. And so Brad's here, and he's very talented and capable. He's got some great engineers with him. And we've been looking at other traffic calming measures, just like Logan mentioned, at other places in the city, because we likewise are quite concerned about it. And we don't want any tragedies to happen on our watch. So we just kind of take these things quite seriously. There are things that the city staff is not fond of and things that the city council likes. And so, I mean, we go back and forth on these things, but that's the process. And so don't be frustrated with the process, but let the process happen and work with Brad on it. And if you get to where Brad's not responding, please let us know. But I know Brad very well, and he's very responsive to citizens and what their concerns are. So, and we've talked about bulb outs, we've talked about raised walks, we've talked about flashing lights, we've talked about signals and stop signs and all kinds of things to try to do things of what you're talking about, and that's quite critical to us. So work with him, kind of have a point person, and work with Brad, and we just encourage you to do that. And thank you for coming out. That means an awful lot to us. You know, you're limited.
Oh, I can twist your arm. Just to make another point about not falling on deaf ears, when I first got in the council, a similar request was made in this same location, and the signs that are there now was because of that request. So they don't fall on deaf ears.
So thank you. We appreciate that. Yes. That would be great. That's what I was hoping you would do. So. There you go. Yeah, that's right. What he's basically doing is trying to get out of the rest of the meeting. Wish I could do the same. Okay, we have the consent agenda items. Any of them that we need to pull off? We've mentioned or asked that before. Anything that we need to pull off before we ask for a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Okay, second.
I will second that.
It's a roll call vote. Logan?
Aye.
Mike?
Yes.
Mindy?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, Josh, I think you're on.
I want to know who addressed Brookside.
Who what?
Who did the addresses
Wow,
of
that's
Brookside?
like, what?
I was just trying to figure it out. That's
Yeah, I've never been able
Like
to figure it
12?
out. All I know is that I grew up on 128 when it was a normal Brookside
Your
house.
house has grown.
My house burned down, and that's what they built in its place.
Ah, okay. That makes so much more sense. I was
You may
trying to
wanna ask-
extrapolate from a Brookside house to that and
Nah.
couldn't quite get there.
No.
Ask Mike how it burned down
I
after
was
the meeting.
I was long gone.
So a photo studio burned down. Mike's house burned down.
Oh, now you're starting to tie
A
it.
bowling alley burned down. What we've got for you tonight, Council, is just a very simple amendment to individual element of the Main Street South Gateway Zone, and that's the minimum clear floor-to-ceiling height for townhomes in the zone. For background, we had previously established that for residential there was specific main floor and upper floor heights, and had put in a provision after the original adoption that for townhomes, if they would raise the lower floor, because there's an interest in providing some vertical relief between the sidewalk and the front door and the porches in these situations to make them more comfortable, that we gave a break to 8 foot 9 inches for those main floors. And this kind of illustrates that with a townhome proposal in the area, just that we have these floor-to-floor heights. It was really put into place primarily, although these floor heights applied to all buildings, it was primarily geared toward the Main Street buildings, where the proportion between the main floor and the upper floor is important. The character and the proportions of buildings on Main Street, if you look kind of up and down the street, the historic buildings have really ample or really tall first floors. The Reynolds building is kind of an outlier, but the bank, the Catherine Davis Furniture Company, or the Senior Pizza Place, the Mendenhall Bank, the Art Gallery, all those two-story buildings have a pretty substantial first floor, and that's kind of key. And in the years ago, as more vertical mixed use was coming back into the development pipeline. Those first floors were often compressed because of, design and engineering efficiencies, and it led to buildings that felt squat and ill proportioned. And so we have an established height for that. But in other zones, we don't have controls for first floor height or interior floor clear heights for townhomes. Even in other zones where we have similar regulations about massing, like the Westfield Central traditional neighborhood development overlay. And then no other zone period has these requirements for single family or townhomes. And it's turned out, as we've been working through different projects, that it really complicates the design of the townhomes, because it increases the complexity of the framing that's required to maintain those heights, but still stay under the maximum building height. So we're kind of pushing them down from the top, but pushing the inside of the building bigger. Things like having to flush frame floor joists off of beams or use larger interior structural elements instead of building it traditionally. We've looked at other areas, like I mentioned, on Main Street, where this is more important. We don't permit townhomes on Main Street or for a certain distance off of any side street off of Main Street. In other zones, like Westfield Central or even the Westfield's overlay in general, where we have townhomes, this lack of clear floor-to-floor height or floor-to-ceiling height hasn't been a contributor to reduced design quality or really resulted in any problems that I can identify. But we have noticed that minimum finished floor elevation of 18 inches above the sidewalk is actually really important, especially in these areas where you have reduced setbacks. The closer you are to the sidewalk, you need that vertical relief to help people feel comfortable to use their porches as semi-private spaces or feel comfortable in the private space behind the door or behind their windows. So the Planning Commission recommended that we remove the minimum floor-to-ceiling heights for townhomes, but institute a universal height for that minimum first floor elevation to be 18 inches above the sidewalk, where it's now available in exchange for a reduction. But we feel and Planning Commission recommended, in line with staff's recommendation, that that was important, and it comes to you with a 5-0 recommendation from Planning Commission, with Commissioners Calder and Nelson excused from that meeting at the end of June. That's the extent of my report.
Questions for Josh? Doesn't change that. Oh, go ahead, Mindy. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, so basically you're going to remove any minimums, so because they don't exist anywhere else within the city. But then you're going to then put in an ordinance where it has to be 18 inches off the sidewalk.
Which does exist in other in Westfield Central
places,
and in Lakeside.
But you're going to make that be universal.
For the Main Street South Gateway zone.
So why wouldn't we want to do it I guess, are we creating too many little silos for this is this zone, this has to be over in this area, this has to be this way and this way? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Can it just be
you just
across
bought
the
a
board?
fix for that, but it's going to be 16 months.
Okay. So
with the zoning overhaul.
yeah.
That since I've been here, we have responded to, and this is really probably a negative reflection on my tenure, but we've responded to development pressures and opportunities with incremental changes or individual stopgap measures, even like the traditional neighborhood development overlay, that I would rather have a unified and large toolbox that has tools that can apply to all these situations instead of having to craft individual solutions on an ad hoc basis. But we've done that in some cases since I've been here, and the fix for that will come with the zoning overhaul, where we look and say, hey, is this a general urban design element that when we're in a certain setting on a certain kind of street within a certain setback, that the first floor and the porch needs to be this high, independent of what it is. That's definitely something we'll analyze and we'll implement in a more uniform way when we get there.
So you're just trying to do it for this area?
Correct.
for
We're
now.
just making a change to the Main Street South Gateway Zone because the current code is increasing the difficulty of designing and building townhomes in this area. So it's just an immediate problem we want to address.
So the 18-inch thing, that is basically for a feel or aesthetic purpose only?
It's hard to quantify, but it's been really well documented observationally that when you have buildings that are closer to the sidewalk, that you need some type of visual and vertical difference from the sidewalk, so that that front porch feels like an intermediate place instead of fully public like the sidewalk, or essentially private like the inside. We want it to function like a continuum where the sidewalk is very public, the front porch and the front setback is kind of a semi-public place, and then as you move into the house, typically you have public rooms at the front, and it kind of goes the other direction where you go very private in the back. And it's been observed by new urbanists, and there's a number of diagrams by some of the key figures in that movement as to the relationship between the setback and the height of that. It was explained to me by Tom Lowe, who helped us with Westfield Central, that part of it is the height relationship between somebody who's sitting in a chair on a front porch and standing on the sidewalk, and the closer you are to the sidewalk, the more that person's looking down at you if you're at grade. If you're farther away, that angle is less and it feels less pronounced, but as you come closer, that it's more important to have that that vertical difference to signal that progression from public to private and to make it feel comfortable. And the observational results have been that when they make changes like that, or fix the railing, or do those type of things in new projects where they're kind of iterating to get it right, that they notice immediate improvements in the comfort and the usability of those front porches, those semi-public areas when we do that.
I just think for ADA purposes, that seems 18 inches seems rather high.
Visitability is another issue that is newer to me. There was a presentation last year at our state planning conference about it, where the presenter said, it was in a wheelchair, and said, raise your hand if I can come eat dinner at your house. And I couldn't raise my hand because there's one place he could get into my house, into the downstairs family room, if I took him around the side yard. So that is as an issue of equity and just practicality, and how many people will face some type of mobility disability throughout their lives is a big issue. And so that's another thing that we'll evaluate in the larger zone rewrite, about really in the development standards, about how subdivisions are graded, and that we do provide accessible entrances, and evaluate things like a minimum door width in at least one bathroom, those type of things, to address that visitability issue, our overall aging population, and all of those things. But it's a trade-off between the ease of accessibility at the front door and the other urban design considerations.
So this might be we might say yes to it tonight, but then it might be changed when we do the zoning code.
I can't say yes or no to that. The most likely result, at least in my limited understanding experience in this kind of niche, is that relationship between the sidewalk and the front door is important to maintain some of that vertical separation, but that there are secondary entrances or garages or other ways that, from how you grade the subdivision to begin with to how you build the houses, that you can address those ways and balance both concerns. So I think we may add some other considerations if it, from the input from our engagement processes and the steering committees and the council and planning commission input, if those are important elements as we redo the zoning.
Great, thank you, Josh.
So what effect does this have on the developer in terms of when he starts to build?
Which developer?
Aren't we talking about the Allens block? The townhomes on the Allen's Block.
There, we do have another townhome proposal in this zone that'll probably go before the Allen's Block, interestingly.
Oh.
Can you tell us where that's at?
Yeah, it's just right directly behind the Jefferson School on 8
that's-
South and 100
No,
East.
that new one.
But there has been discussion that I've had with the Allen's Block team about some of the difficulties that this has created as they've advanced design. And
The difficulties that the
current
that
structure.
the current structure does?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
This resolves a problem.
So this is going to be helpful to them to move
Yes.
forward.
So it doesn't raise it, it just makes it so that you don't compress the second and third floor, or whatever the case is. It just makes it so there's more.
It just gets rid of those interior requirements altogether, because it doesn't change your overall height limit at all, or your
right, it
step backs. It just says this main floor and upper floor height don't apply to townhomes
Right.
In the South Gateway.
in the Main Street South Gateway zone. Correct. Thank you. So from the exterior of the unit, you're not going to notice any difference.
Didn't we also pass an ordinance for them already for a porch to the green space?
We did make some amendments earlier this year regarding porch encroachments onto common green or pedestrian ways, yes. So
So
we
is
do
their
continue to
design-
iterate.
I guess, is their design then such that they are trying to make us change ours to meet what they want to build? Or are they coming across this as they're going through their process? Or should they change their design over us changing our ordinances?
That's a really good question, and it's something Troy and I, interestingly, have had some conversations about lately, that it's something we need to be cognizant of and probably do a better job at bringing to you the history on these type of things that often will establish a vision or establish a zone, and in the iterative process of helping the project move forward or addressing concerns, we incrementally step away from the original intent and end up somewhere cumulatively that we wouldn't have intended to be if we had done it at once. In this case, with the front porch encroachments, it was really me looking at it and saying, that how the code was written discouraged builders from putting front porches because they would have had to sacrifice interior space to put front porches on. And after having gone through the Westfield Central process and learned a lot more about configuration and specifics around front porches, which is again a whole nother niche in urban design, from the professionals that helped us with that, coming back to the Main Street South Gateway zone, I looked at that and said we could do a better job at making this better by doing that. It did, I guess, accrue benefit to the builder, particularly the one behind the Jefferson School, because they were able to have front porches without taking out a whole row of townhomes, whether that's good or bad. But on this one, the development manager, the guy that's running the development for the Allen's Block, talked to me about this, and it really was, there was an issue with the architects and the contractors. The architects hadn't, specified didn't understand the specifications and the structural limits of the way they had designed the framing, and had assured us that the measurements we'd gone to before would work. But then the contractor came in and the structural engineer and said, actually, no, that's not how that product works. And I thought to myself, we don't have this requirement anywhere else. I can't see how it's accruing benefit to the city or to the public to say you need an 8-foot, 9-inch first floor, when an 8-foot first floor would be fine if that's what they think the market wants or what makes sense in that area. And so in this case, I feel confident that we are not incrementally sacrificing our vision for the zone, but that we're making incremental improvements, both in the accrue benefit to the city and then to design, and also accrue benefit to making it easier for a developer and a builder to deliver a product.
So we're gonna wipe away the minimum for
townhomes.
For townhomes.
For the interior.
So it
floors in
can
height.
be 8 foot, or it can be a 7-foot first level.
I don't think it can be 7 foot
Well, I'm just
under
saying-
building, but it would be governed by building code like everywhere else.
So there is building code that will
Yes.
Recognize the.
Yes, there's a minimum ceiling height
Okay.
in the building code.
Sounds good.
It can't be like that half floor in the Being John Malkovich where everybody has to, kind of squat. It'll be a real floor.
Great.
So it's almost just evaluating it from the perspective of is that regulation necessary and is it productive? It really wasn't necessary nor productive, but created additional difficulty.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, if not, then I'm open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 08-2024 to amend Springville Code 11-4-708-4 to eliminate the minimum clear floor-to-ceiling height for townhomes in the Main Street South Gateway Zone.
I need a second.
I will second that.
Okay, that's a roll call vote. Logan?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Mindy?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Good questions, Mindy. Okay, Carla, you're on.
I feel like this is a little Groundhog Day on these checklists. Yes, so if you remember, we came before you with a pending ordinance, or excuse me, a resolution for a pending legislation regarding these checklists. Then we went to the Planning Commission, which reviewed them and accepted your advice to consider this for legislative action. They voted unanimously with 2 of our Planning Commission members absent. And now we are here for our final adoption of the both residential and commercial subdivision application checklists that will simply list all of the items that are required for a complete application. And if you would like to read all the fun little...
No questions
No.
for Carla? You had a chance to go through that? Did you read it all word for word?
No.
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. And I
It
wrote
was
it.
very
I
entertaining
mean, I
perusing.
did. I read it all. I read it all. I didn't say that in front of my attorney. So there was a lot of cutting and pasting.
Okay, questions? Anything? Okay, I'm open for a motion then.
I motion that we approve ordinance number 09-2024 to adopt Springville City's residential and commercial subdivision regulations and application process to include preliminary and final plan application checklist.
Okay, have a motion?
I'll second.
Okay, it's a roll call vote. Mindy?
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Logan?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Very good. I'm surprised we haven't had one of those.
Well, we did,
Oh,
but it was the changes to the code that we basically were duplicating. We had the application checklist, but then we listed all those items in the code as well. So this allows us just to refer to these adopted checklists in the code to provide some brevity to that. And also it allows us to make sure that the verbiage is consistent between the checklists and the subdivision regulations for residential that have been required to do. So now it's just everything is consistent. And I was actually speaking to some people from the league today, and we're kind of ahead of the curve on for a city our size, for the changes and getting the subdivision regulations up and running.
good.
So
Very good, Carla.
This also ended up being a very good exercise for all the departments to go through and make sure that they're asking for all the things they need and that it's appropriate and everything else. So it's been a really good exercise.
it really has, and I've learned more about power than I didn't know I knew. It's been really good because at the same time, the power department is updating their standards and specifications. And so it has helped them because our power department has been taking on the responsibility of designing both primary and secondary power plans for developments. And this allows them to say, this is what we want, and putting that onus on the developer with us as a stopgap rather than doing it for them. And so it's been, like John said, it's been a really good exercise for me and for all of the departments that I've been able to work with and to clarify all of this. So
Very good.
And this means that when you guys need to add something or update an item on the checklist, it doesn't need to be a new ordinance. You can just update that list. Is that?
John,
I
speak to
understand
that for me, because
Yes.
I'm not 100%.
Yes and no. I mean, the state law changed probably about 4 or 5 years ago. We used to do a lot of things outside, like when it came to standards and specs, just through engineering requesting what they needed. And then state law said, well, that's actually starting to become more of a regulation. So now you've got to go to planning commission and to city council to change anything. So what this does is it allows us to have it separate and kind of keeps everything in one place. So if somebody comes in to develop, they don't have to go through our whole code. They can just go to this list. But we still need to go through the same process.
Okay.
If they change anything on the
If we change it, yeah.
And
Very good.
and the other thing that I think is really going to be helpful for us is with these new subdivision regulations that the state has mandated, we now have a much more thorough and concise and easily available and to explain what a complete application is, since we are limited in the number of reviews and what will be required, and it's triggered by acceptance of a complete application. This gives us the teeth that we need to be able to say, no, this is not a complete application, and that review process has not yet been triggered. So it supports us in that way as well. So,
Okay, thank you,
all
Carl.
right, thank you.
Any other items we need to go through?
I don't have any.
Okay, take a motion for adjournment.
I motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Roll call.